So people should be funneling in now. I'll just give it another minute here, and then we'll get started. Looks like everyone's popping in. Okay. All right, we'll get started then. So, hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. I am Bill Sprague. I'm the owner of Risk Averse Insurance in media. I'm just going to be the moderator today. The idea is to keep our panel talking. We have a really great panel with us, who I'll introduce in a minute. But what I hope that you'll get out of this webinar today is, a couple things. As business owners and employees, I really hope that you'll get an understanding of how some similar businesses have been affected, but how they're managing to stay engaged with staff and customers, and how they plan to get back to business as restrictions ease. As consumers, I hope that you'll come out of this with an understanding of the steps that businesses are taking for your safety as consumers, and why it's important that we're supporting our local businesses in the community now more than ever. So if you wouldn't mind, if you have questions along the way, please put something in the chat box. I don't know if we'll have time at the end for a Q&A, so I will try to put some questions, mix in your questions as we go along. So again, just use the chat box for that kind of stuff. So let's see. I just want to make sure everyone, okay, it looks like everyone's just about in here. All right, so just a real quick introductions of everyone. We have first Mike Ranck. Mike is the CEO at the Community Y in Delaware County. He's been that for 15 plus years. He's responsible for growing it from 2 to 3 locations with the addition of the Springfield Healthplex this year. And Mike oversees 600 plus employees. So I think he'll be able to talk a lot to the employee side of this whole COVID-19 thing. Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Bill.
We have John Port. John Port is a partner at the Mulholland team real estate. He's also one of the founding members of the Delco group. If you're not familiar with the Delco group, make sure you're following them on social media. They do a ton of amazing things, and they're out there all the time. They're everywhere. As a realtor, John and his team have done more transactions than any agent in Delaware County since 2008. So John, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Next, we have Michelle West. Michelle's the owner of Bittersweet Kitchen and Media. In normal times, Michelle is managing a team of roughly 20. Michelle and her team have been very busy in this whole economic downturn. They've been feeding hundreds of frontline workers. So first of all, Michelle, thank you for that. And thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk to everybody.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, we have Kev Nolan. Kev is the owner of Nolan Painting. Nolan Painting's been in business for 40 plus years, and they've grown into the largest residential painting company in the country. Kev also does consulting with contracting businesses around the country to help them reach their full potential. And a fun fact that we were just talking about is that Kev has run a marathon in all 50 states, which is
There they are behind me, all the
really
medals.
cool. There's all the medals. Kev, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Bill. Happy to be here.
So what I'd like to do, if we could just go around and each of you kind of just explain how you've been impacted by this whole situation with COVID-19 and the economic downturn, and we'll just start from there. So Mike, would you mind getting us started?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. as Bill said, I work for the Community Y in Delaware County. I've been in the Y 30 plus years. Been all over from Bucks County to New York State. Worked at the old Ardmore Y before it was knocked down. So it's been a long time, a good ride. But this has been by far the hardest and most devastating thing I've ever had to deal with. Not knowing from day to day, going through what we had to do to ensure the future of the Y with our staff, and then trying to figure out what to do in the future to make sure the Y is here to serve the community. That's it's just been a daily grind every day, and I joke about it, but I really think it's true. I've learned that I think I'm working more when I can't be in the office because I'm constantly thinking about work and everything we need to do all the time. Whereas before I could turn it off when I left the office, and now I can't. So it really does take its toll. I see everyone else shaking their head doing the same thing. You just can't get away from it. And that's the most difficult part.
Yeah, the lines have really been blurred throughout this situation, that's for sure. So Mike, with everything that's happened, have you been able to stay engaged with your members and with your employees, and how have you done that?
So, you know, I think the big learning lesson we had at the Y was that email does not solve everything. So we've been communicating a lot through social media, email to our members, trying to engage that way with the different community service things we've been doing. But what we found out is that a number of our members don't really check their email. They're not on social media, or they're avoiding social media, so the message doesn't get out. And in our case, we went from over 640 staff down to 11 when we had to shut down. So we don't even have the staff to make phone calls to people at this point. And we elected not to use some technology, you know, not to use the robocalls or the Global Connect calls that go out, just because it's not as personal. So we have been responding to everyone who emails us or calls us remotely. We have been doing a lot of different things. I have to, you know, throw some props out to John and the Delco group. We did a food drive in Springfield, and our goal was to fill one school bus to take to local shelters. And with the Delco group's help and Springfield School District help, we filled 2 school buses with food. So it went out to the shelter, and for everyone that's on this webinar, we're going to have another one next week. We just heard that the Salvation Army in Darby had some massive electrical issues, and they lost all the food that they had. So we're going to be organizing another one here in Lansdowne. We've also learned, at least I have, that the Y is more than just a gym or a pool. I've always known that, but we need to really get that out into the community more, because the community wants to give back. And I think lesson learned for me as we come out of this is we're stronger together as a community. You know, we rely on each other, whether we know it or not. And we need to work together better rather than separate, because that's the only way it's going to get better.
Agreed. Hey, John, how about you? How have you been impacted, and how's your business been impacted?
Yes. So, you know, the real estate market has, you know, just like so many other industries, we've been devastated by this. You know, as far as timing goes, our kickoff to like the beginning of the market in Delaware County is usually in that early March, late February, depending on the weather. That's when we really start to see the, you know, the influx of properties coming on and properties selling. And that's when this happened, you know, so kind of all these real estate teams, offices, they were building for that, and it was taken right out from underneath. So we have to be completely virtual at this point. The state still has us shut down. So the only thing we can do is operate through like virtual tours. You know, buyers and sellers that are completing transactions are supposed to be, since the shutdown, are supposed to be doing so virtually without actually being in the property, which is tied the hands of a lot of people. It's just put us in, really an unrealistic situation. So it's done that. It's kind of stopped us right in our tracks. So to kind of answer that second question, Billy, what have we done and what have we started to do is we basically sat back, in the beginning of this and took 2 or 3 days to try to figure out which direction we were going to go with it from our team, from the Mulholland team, the selling Delco team. And what we decided was like, either A, we could try to continue to push forward and do business as usual. And I thought that was probably insensitive to what we're seeing in our area right now, and then 2 was take the vacation, which would have been great. But, as Mike said earlier, right, you find yourself more involved right now because you're thinking about it at 3 a.m. It's nonstop. And then the third option with us was kind of like, hey, you know what? Our community needs our clients could use a boot, whether it's just a smile to put on their face because how down everybody is about this. So we went totally that route for the last 5 weeks. And we've been dropping off, slushies to like alcohol slushies to clients, or a 6-pack of beer or a pizza kit to make with their kids or things like that. And, that's gone over really well. I mean, our clients and, future clients, friends, family, they've loved the sentiment of that. And it's let them know that we're here for them. There's really not much else we can do. We're seeing other transactions through, but that's been pretty much our approach. And then obviously the 2 of us are with 9 other guys on the board of the Delco group. And, we've kind of converted that to becoming almost full-time for us right now while we're waiting, so we're 100% in on the Delco group while this is all going on.
Awesome. That's awesome, John. Michelle, how about you?
So we have, restaurants are impacted, like everybody is impacted. We've been able to stay open and do to-go and delivery. And that's helped. I mean, we're probably at about 50% of normal sales on the weekends and about 20% of normal sales during the week. So we really wanted to commit to keeping employees working as long as they wanted to work. So we sort of, like you guys said, my whole thing every day is like, okay, what can we do to just keep it alive, keep people working? So we started a hospital fund. We asked people to donate to feed hospital workers. People donated over $11,000. So we've been doing meals, hundreds of meals a week to local hospitals and healthcare workers. And, and that's helping us and I think helping them. But what's been really cool is that, at first it felt so weird to say, it felt like, asking for people to make these donations or whatever. It was like, it felt, I don't know, strange to me, to like asking people who are maybe also experiencing difficulties to make contributions. But so many people reached out and said, we just want an opportunity to help. We're looking for some way that we can send a thank you to healthcare workers, or we can do something nice for people. So that feels good to sort of humbly like accept that we need help right now to keep things going, and also to be part of sort of this chain of, of feel good stuff that's going on right now. And I feel like it's all over social media that, people are stepping up to do all kinds of things to help people in need and to reach out to children and to reach out to elderly. And, these terrible sort of tragic moments in our nation's history, I guess, often do bring out the best too. I think about in the wake of 9/11, how people, sort of rallied together, and there was this really patriotic feeling. And I think that there's something sort of patriotic too about the feeling of contributing to feed a nurse, or send a slushie to somebody who works at Acme or whatever. I think that feels really nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. How about Ev? How about you? How have you been impacted?
Well, actually, I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm actually up and operating, just up and operating as of Monday. We were officially allowed back on Friday, but that's kind of a weird day to start business, and there was unemployment issues. People are still on unemployment. So we used it as a training day, gave out some PTO to our employees to get trained on some of the new norms they're going to face while they're out there. So we were severely impacted. We had 137 people that we laid off, and we kept 11 during the course of the, just to keep them on the payroll, to keep the phones going and pay attention to some of the details of the business. Collect receivables, which was a big deal because we were owed a lot of money. We were literally stopped right in the middle of a lot of jobs. So 6 weeks, lots and lots of planning, phone calls, Zoom calls to plan what's going to be like when we come back. We too were having the best year we were ever going to have. It was an amazing start. The weather had given us a break this year, and business was literally spectacular. And so, you know, you spend a little while sort of feeling sorry for yourself, but then you realize you're an entrepreneur. You have to figure out what the new norm is going to look like, or as best as you can. So we did get the SBA loan, and unfortunately we were still shut down so we couldn't really pay people, or could we? And we have all these decisions and all. But I did manage to get a lot of people back, about 100 people back. There was that whole big thing about how do you get people back who make more on unemployment than they will painting houses. I mean, I pay pretty good, but I don't pay roughly $30 an hour or $29 an hour, which is what you could theoretically make for everybody who's painting. So we did a $1,000 bonus for everybody who came back when we asked them, which worked out pretty good because they came back this past Monday. They normally wouldn't get paid because they'd have to wait a week, right? But they now get a paycheck this week of $1,000 across the board. And we also guaranteed everybody 40 hours a week. So we're in a business that does have weather dependency. And if you look at this week, for instance, it's going to rain tomorrow, and it rained yesterday, and it's going to be winter on Saturday. So we'll get in 3 good days this week. Now we do some inside work, but generally not when it's been occupied or being occupied by folks. So there's a few empty houses that were sold just before. Then everybody's been waiting to get them painted and before they could move in and things like that. But generally speaking, we're going to be weather dependent for most of this year because the guidelines are a lot easier to follow, obviously, outdoor construction than they are inside.
That was going to be one of my questions to you is what precautions are you taking with consumers now? I'm sure they're nervous having people in their house.
Well, so I've been, so I struggle with a lot of this, like a lot of people. You know, I'm not a germaphobe, so I'm not sure about how people do take on it. But I also, in all my marketing and in most of the discussions, I just refer people to our website where we have, you know, listed all the things that we're doing to keep people safe. So my advertising this week says to find out how we're keeping our employees and our customers safe, go to our website. Other than that, I want to have a positive message. But so beyond that, obviously, social distancing is the big deal. Masks are the big deal. And, you know, everybody's got their own. It was funny because we were at a meeting last week and I was giving everybody their own disinfectant bottles. So I've got 100 bottles now filled with disinfectant. And I'm explaining how the field managers are going to drive around with new disinfectant and you can refill it. And then somebody started passing around and I was saying, you're not supposed to share your bottle or share tools. And then somebody was passing around a Sharpie to put their name on it. And I was like, you're passing around a Sharpie. So, anyway, behaviors will change. And it's really about that. Yeah, we feel that for the most cases, we can keep people safe. I do have 2 people that have been out this week with symptoms, and we're trying to get them tested today because we can't send people back, and yet so I have to still pay them anyway and things like that. But I also had 2 people that got injured this week. One's going on workers' comp. So some of those things would be normal, but some of the other things aren't normal, right? I wouldn't say normal, but people do get injured, and it does happen. But those are sort of what the problems we had before that we're always dealing with.
Right.
But generally speaking, we're just more concerned about whether there'll be consumer demand. And that's been my whole concern all along. So
Was there a backlog? So the people that wanted houses painted prior to, are they
they're still
sticking
there.
with it?
They're still there. We did reach out to them a number of times throughout the whole ordeal and say, hey, please stay with us. We need you to be there. In many cases, they had given us deposits for jobs and we didn't want to give them their money back. I mean, I'm capable of doing that, but obviously you don't want to do that if you can avoid it. And so we reached out to them, and so far we've had very, very few cancellations. I think we had about 500 jobs worth about $3 million lined up. And there's only been a handful of cancellations. So that's really not what I predicted. I predicted more. And so I've lost all ability to predict anymore. So.
Hey, Mike, how about you? Any expectations on when you can reopen and how that's going to look? You're muted, Mike. Hey, Mike, you're on mute.
Maybe you can unmute him now.
There you go. Sorry. I muted myself. Am I back?
You're back.
Given that we're in so many different areas and we fall into so many different categories, it's difficult to predict. We are hopeful that our childcare and summer camp programs can open in June. We haven't gotten the word yet on that, but we know that if parents need to go back to work, they need childcare, and day camp is really summer childcare for school-age kids. So we're hoping for that, but that's all going to depend on the numbers in Delaware County and what the governor says. We during this whole thing, we were closely monitoring how many of our members were staying with us and so on. And we think at this point about 80% of our members stayed with us and either froze their membership or continued some type of payment to help us survive. So we're thankful for that. But at this point, we've frozen all membership payments. So we're not accepting any more because we don't know. We know that the fitness centers and the swimming pools and things like that probably won't open until late summer, early fall at best. We know, the physical distancing that's going to have to go on in all of those areas means some reduction of some of the equipment that we have and adding space. We've tested some of our fitness instructors trying to lead classes with masks on, and you just can't do it. They go about 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops, and then you can't breathe. So there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. But the biggest thing we're focused on right now is childcare and camp. Those are the things that the families in our community need in order to get back to work. And I've heard from a lot of parents that I saw a great thing on Facebook, and it was a black suburban SUV with the back windows, and it said on someone had written in soap on the windows, "You lied to me. My child is not a dream in the classroom." So I think parents are hitting that point. I have to say I have a high school senior, and he's missing graduation this year. But I've seen him do a lot more work now on the computer and keeping up with his schoolwork, whereas before he would do it all in school. So it's kind of neat to do that. But to get back to your original question, we're hoping for June, early June.
You know what that's going to look like? What types of changes the members can expect?
So anyone walking into our facilities will be temperature checked. They'll be asked 3 questions around the COVID questions. And if the temperature is above 100.4, they will not be allowed in the facility. That'll go for our summer camps and childcare. We'll temperature check every child every day they come in. We're increasing our housekeeping and maintenance budgets because of the cleaning that is necessary to go on. We're looking, if anyone knows where we can buy them, we're looking for the disinfectant foggers. Right now, they're about 6 to 10 weeks on back order. Wow. So that we can go into areas, especially at night and especially in our high traffic areas, and fog the areas with disinfectant. so we can knock things out as they come. Members are going to need to expect some inconveniences. We know if we're allowed to open this summer, for some of the adult areas, there will be no locker rooms. There'll be, as I said, probably no pools this summer. We may have to schedule people to go on the fitness equipment. So you get to schedule your time like a doctor's appointment. We're not sure if that's how that's gonna play out. We need to first look at everyone's health and safety and well-being, and then figure everything else out. One thing that I'm very concerned about is, as in every cash register situation that you walk into in the food stores or CVS or whatever, they now have the plexiglass screens in front of everyone. And the why is about people. It's about people sharing with people. And to put that barrier in front is going to be vitally important to the health of everybody, but it takes away that human touch feeling. And so many people come to the Y not because we're a gym or a pool, but because their friends go there, and because it's a place of community and it's a place of gathering. It's a place where their kids grow up. It's a place where the seniors come. Most recently, it's a place where people can get some food and some shelter. So it's going to be a difficult transition, and it's going to be one that I think the whole community will embrace and get behind, and we'll continue to move forward with it.
Great. John, so you had mentioned a little bit, I know the last few years, the real estate market's seems like it's been pretty great, right? And no reason to expect that this year would have been any different coming into this. What's your outlook? What do you expect to happen on the real estate market coming out of this?
So, look, anybody that says, hey, this is what's going to happen in the real estate market, if they knew the answer to that, they'd be a very, very wealthy person. It's a guess, but the one thing we're seeing here, so, this is the first time I've had more of a polarizing opinion on this in a very long time. So when you think about the recession, you hear back 2008, 2009. Anyone who followed Delaware County real estate market specifically, 2010 was our ground zero. That's when we were at rock bottom. And what happened there, if you remember back, there was two tax credits that were basically put into motion to try to boost the market. The market wasn't great, but we were in a recession. And what they did was they first did an $8,000 first-time home buyer tax credit. You essentially got $8,000 cash for buying a property. From there, they then folded that out into an $8,000 for a first-time home buyer and a $6,500 for anybody moving up. So you're moving your second house or your third house, you get $6,500 for that. And it was essentially cash. What it did was it was an artificial boost to the market, right? They actually were able to come in and kind of dip their hand into the market and make it move. And it did. It was pure chaos. Busy as could be. At one point, I remember getting phone calls from clients saying, hey, we'll take one of these three houses, because they wanted that $8,000, or that you're buying a $200,000 house and somebody's giving you $8,000 cash at closing. That makes a big difference for people. So we saw that, and what came after that was our rock bottom, right? They artificially took next month's buyers and the following month's buyers, and they moved them up because they wanted to get this credit before it expired. After that, every buyer in the market stopped. They wanted to see, was a new credit going to happen? Was there going to be 10,000 this time? Were you going to get paid if you sold and bought? What was going to happen next? And everybody stopped. And 2010 was where we really saw rock bottom in our market. Right now, what I'm seeing, again, we're being artificially stopped. Our market was hot going into this. It still is. We are still seeing things sell. And you've just taken a big portion of buyers and told them, hey, you can't go do this. You can't go see, feel, and touch it. You can look at it online. And what I think happens from there is, in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when we get the release to go back out and start to operate, whatever the new normal is at that point, but we're allowed to be in houses. I think we see a change in the market where, for the first month, 2 months, 3 months, we are going to see a boom. It's going to be crazy because of the pent-up demand that's artificially happened here. What I fear is after that. So I believe we're set up for stability still in that market, obviously without outside circumstances that we can't control. None of us knew we were going to be in this situation right now. But after that 2 to 3 months, you have this pent-up demand of buyers and then and sellers. And what typically happens is the market then takes off and sellers see that and say, oh, well, my neighbor sold, I'm going to put my house up. And all of a sudden, eventually those buyers aren't there. So I think we're seeing a position where it'll remain to be seen, but it's one of the first times I've seen a legitimate chance that we see a drop off or a potential bubble in our market because of all of this, and time will all be the only thing that truly tells, but it's the first time I've looked at it and said, wow, there's actually a chance of that.
Interesting. Maybe it just comes with experience. You see things a little better, Michelle, over to you. So I think people are ready to get back to normal in any way they can. I know I would love to sit down in a restaurant, have a meal with my family and things like that.
Oh my gosh, we would love that.
Yeah, right.
We would love that so much.
Yeah, and it just seems like I'm sure there are going to be plenty of restrictions coming out of this from the CDC, face masks indoors, things like that, which I would think are going to be tough in a restaurant. I mean, what are your expectations and how do you expect to deal with those things?
So I don't know how the face mask will work if people are eating, right? Like you can't eat with the face mask on. Obviously the employees would be wearing face masks, but I just don't know. I don't know if I certainly think at the very least, I mean, if anybody who's dined at Bittersweet Kitchen knows, we are like elbow to elbow. We're like a cozy little spot. We'll, move tables apart and you have to make your way through to get to your table against the wall and stuff. And to me, that's part of the charm and like the busy din of a happy squad of people. But I don't think we're going to see that for a really long time. I think that when we're first allowed to have dine-in customers, we're going to have to take out a lot of tables, have a limited number of tables, maybe use our outside seating. And, what we've learned from this experience and what's been really good is that we're able to do to-go really successfully. Like the curbside to-go and the delivery is working well. We have a new website, which it's so funny. We had started work on the website in February. And then when this happened, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we spent money on a website of all things. Like, I wish I had that money back. And then we started, but the website was connected with online ordering. Well, the website has been, if my biggest advice to any small business is anything that you can, do to invest right now. It's crazy to think about investing money, but anything you can do right now to invest in streamlining the process, reducing the friction of people ordering online. I think that is really saving us because instead of a single person answering people's phone calls for to-go orders, we can get 3 orders or 4 orders at a time online when we start the morning on Saturday and Sunday morning and it's busy. So that's really been good. So I think that when we do start to have dine-in, we're going to expect to dine in with a much different dining room setup, and it's going to look a lot different. We're not going to be able to accommodate as many guests, but then hopefully also people will say, Bittersweet's great for to-go, I'll order it and we'll go to the park and we'll have a Bittersweet picnic in the park. I mean, what I think that the hardest thing right now is that people are picking up food and taking it back to their houses and eating it at their house, and they can't share it with their family or their extended family, and they can't share it with their friends. And I think that when we can gather, even in just small groups, even if it's just your family and another family, I think that's going to make us all feel a little more normal. And I think that, restaurants can definitely kind of be part of that, making it feel like we can have celebrations again. Like, okay, you can't have a big party in the restaurant, but you can get to go from your favorite restaurant and you can get a bottle of wine and you can all gather in the backyard together in a group of 10 or whatever. And I think that's going to be a lot different than what we're experiencing right now, which is just, it's hard to feel like you're celebrating with food or anything else when you're you're sort of in this Groundhog Day situation every day, every day.
Yeah,
but I think I think the restaurant is going to look different for a really long time. I really do. I don't think we're going to be, I mean, I hate to say it because I love restaurants so much, and I love my restaurant full of people. It's just my favorite thing.
Right.
It's my favorite sound. And I love being, in crowded bars, and I love the shore and the, crowded restaurants and waiting I love all of that. It's just my favorite. And I feel like we're going to be missing that for a long time. I think we're going to have to, accept that, that part of restaurants is gone for a while. And that, when you come to Bittersweet, hopefully this summer, you might get to dine in, but you might be one of only a handful of tables or something.
Do you expect the delivery and the curbside to stick around for, even after this kind of goes away, to stick around for traditional dine-in restaurants?
I really do. I think that, we've been heading in that direction anyway. For the last few years, there's fine dining experiences that you can get to go, which is something that, when I started in this business 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. No one would ever think to call up, a fancy dine-in restaurant for to-go food. It just wasn't done. And now, with caviar and Uber Eats and all those things, it's really not unusual at all. I think that even for us, we've always done to-go. But now I think that people think of us more as I think people enjoy our dining room and enjoy our staff, which is amazing. So I think that people still would rather come and eat here for the most part. But I also think that a lot of people now, a lot more people than ever before, have had the to-go Bittersweet experience and are going to say okay, well, Bittersweet's a good to-go option too. Or, it's a long wait time because they only have, 10 tables now. But you can always get to go, or you can always get delivery. So I think that that's probably, well, even just long term, I think that that's going to be a part of our business for forever.
Right.
And having the website, the online ordering and everything, I really think it's made it super super appealing. I don't know. I just feel like the online ordering process, what I'm hearing. So my thing was always, we don't need online ordering. You just call and talk to a person. We're so nice. We love to talk to people on the phone. And the young men who actually built our website, who are who are younger, a good bit younger than I am, were like, no, that's not, we don't like that. They're like, you have to have online ordering. We don't want to talk to people. We want to just have this, totally seamless experience from beginning to end where we don't necessarily interact with other people. So I'm like, I'm learning that that's, it's different. Because for me, even now, if I order to go, I'm like, isn't there a phone number? I just want to call and talk to the person.
I agree.
I'm different, but I know I also just have to, I'm now old. I'm not a good example of what everybody prefers in their experience.
Right.
So that's been a really great thing. That's something that will that's something we've learned in this experience that will, I think, help our business grow in the long run. We just have to sort of survive this, and then I think there's opportunity for us to grow.
Great. Transitioning a little bit to like the employee side of the business, Kev, you had touched on it a little bit earlier. Bringing people back seems like it may be an issue, especially in maybe the trades and other businesses, but because of the amount that's being paid on unemployment. So how much have you run into that? And I know you mentioned a little bit about how you're responding to that to bring them back. So could you just talk around that a little bit?
Well, it puts a lot of pressure, obviously, on us for a number of reasons. Like, I didn't want to bring people back if I didn't have work for them, and I brought them back, and then they took them off of this sweet ride that they were on when they were making all this money. So yeah, it caused a lot of anxiety but like I said, it did work. The plan did work, and I got back I got back everybody we asked. Now, we were restructuring while this was going on. We figured, and I believe like you, John. I think that there's going to be, these W things where we're busy now because it's spring, and we're actually much busier than I would have expected. But But at some point, I do believe there's going to be a tail off in that. And so I didn't want to bring back all the salespeople because I already had work. I didn't think we would need them. But then, of course, now we're really busy. So I brought back 2 more salespeople starting next week. But there's been a lot of anxiety around that because I've told a number of people, like I did a lot of recruiting for employees. I'm not sure that's going to really be a thing short term or midterm. So I let some people go there. So I've tried to get my overhead down so that I can make enough money to pay off this really big SBA loan that I borrowed. Yeah, just trying to figure out a longer term strategy if it doesn't maintain full on busy. You know, I really, people would come around me, even my sales guys, they're finding out, you know, people are still interested in having the work done, which is exciting and good. But they become like Pollyanna, like everything's great, nothing's going to be a problem, everything's going to be okay. And so I really don't want to be overly optimistic and make a big mistake in that direction, right? Because ultimately, if you're not careful, you could end up in a lot more debt when it's all over. So immediately trying to figure out how to, you know, pay off the money that we're going to be using to operate here, and be right-sized. Don't know what it is yet, but you know, it's been a real challenge to stay positive all through this. And so Michelle and Michael, I mean, really, I really hope you guys can hold on because you guys, both of you are like such a big part of our lives. You know, I'm a member of the Y and obviously I like to socialize and we really want to get back to normal someday. And it's about staying strong. And, you know, my son asked me, my son works in the business, and he, by the way, he was an estimator. And so I laid him off and then we found out we could power wash. So then he, about a week or 2 later, I called him back to power wash. And so for 4 weeks in a row, he power washed, which was good for him to remember that humility. But he asked me, he said, so what happens like every 10 years you build your business up and it gets ruined? And yeah, that's kind of right what happens. But the resiliency that you need to have to survive it, I mean, I don't think we want to look at it as being ruined. We want to look at it as this is a challenge, and we'll get through this challenge, and then we'll get back to good times again. Because yeah, 2008 to 2011 or something were the worst years I had in business. And then things got good again. And so I feel pretty confident long-term in lots of things, in America, in the local community, and in my own ability to plan and work my way out of this. So I feel pretty confident long-term, but yeah, the next year is going to be tough. So I'm bracing myself for that.
Yeah.
And Mike, similar thing, you're going to be hiring back a lot of people pretty soon, I would think. And do you expect to run into this? And do you have any plans for working around it?
Well, first, let me say, Michelle, you know, one of the good things that's come out of this for our family is we were very much disjointed. And so I would have night meetings. My wife would work at night. My son had high school activities. The really good thing about this is we're now having dinner with each other every night.
Yeah.
And we still go out once a week. We order out. So, but sitting around the table, really, it's different and it's good.
It is good.
It is really good. So, Bill, to get to your question, yeah, we're going to be bringing back, we're asking to come back very soon, some of our childcare staff. And our concern there obviously is just around the distancing that's going to have to go on in childcare and keeping the kids as best we can healthy and socially distant. But the other thing is just what Kevin had said. We know from doing some of the salary calculations based on what some of our childcare workers were being paid on a full-time basis that the extra $600 they're getting in their unemployment check, they're making more money on unemployment than they would working for us full time. Now they have to, there's some other things in there that they have to account for that they didn't when they were working. But we've called a few already just to gauge interest, and there are like, yeah, we're going stir crazy. We want to come back. When can we come back? Our problem is going to be judging the business, because we're not sure how many people or how many kids in camp or kids in childcare are going to come back. Our childcare programs full day run about 400 to 500 kids a day. We're guesstimating at this point a 50% return when we can open, which that'll trickle down to staff. And some of the guidance around childcare is kids have to stay in the same classroom all day with the same teacher, with the same group of kids. And that's relatively easy in childcare. But when we project out to the fall, think about the schools and what are they going to do with schools in the fall, and how is that going to work? And so we're concerned. I think if we can keep that focus on people and the caring side of it, people will come back and understand some of the things we're going to have to implement. But yeah, we're concerned. We can't have childcare workers calling out sick anymore because we can't have subs. It has to be the same teacher. We can't shift kids from room to room when we don't have enough in one room, and we can't do that anymore. So we're trying to figure it out. But I think, like everyone on this call and everyone who's listening has probably felt that the rules change every day. And the regulations change every day, which makes this such a moving target. It's hard to figure out, and it's hard to put your thumb down and say, this is what we're doing, because one day it's this and the next day it's this. So it's difficult. It's something that I never thought I would have to live through in my career. But like Kevin said, the Y is the same as any other business in that respect. You go up and you go down, and then you go up and you go down, and you just hope that up and down is the flattening of the curve somewhere, that you can get level-headed.
Right. So Michelle, from an employee standpoint, I know you committed early on to keep on as many staff as possible, which was a pretty bold move, with the restaurants expected to take a hit. What have you done to keep people busy, and what kind of safety precautions are you taking for the employees?
So we tried to keep everybody who wanted to work on the payroll, but people did take some reduced hours so that we could spread people out. So because we're a small little place, so especially for the kitchen, in order for people to have enough room to work and be safely distant from one another, we have a smaller staff at any one time than we normally do. And we've also, customers don't come in the restaurant. We try to keep it to just the staff that's in the restaurant. And we have tons of gloves. And one of our staff members actually made masks for everyone. She makes really good ones. But she doesn't want to sell any, so don't ask. She's made all that she can make. But so we've been, but we want to keep everybody working who wants to work. So in order to do that, in the first couple weeks, it was kind of crazy. Like we were like, okay, well, we have savings for for the business, and we kind of feel like, well, we're the business owners. We need to absorb as much of this as we can, rather than expecting, employees to absorb it. Because I kind of feel like that's the whole thing with capitalism. It's like you get the opportunity to, as an entrepreneur, to make money when things are going well, but then you also kind of have to absorb some of the hit when things are down. So we've been trying, but then we started the hospital fund, and that really helped us a lot. We have had so many people, and I'm just overwhelmed. I mean, I'm just so lucky. So many people, even today, like a friend reached out and wants to send his staff 300 meals next week. Well, that carries us. You know what I mean? Like that's going to cover payroll for the week. You know what I mean? So people, and people have been contributing $10, which that buys a meal, for the hospital fund, that buys a meal for a nurse, but that's a sale. You know what I mean? Like that's how we're kind of doing it. And then we have we have our to-go business, and on the Saturdays and Sundays, our to-go business is decent and stuff, but our employees are awesome. We're a small little staff, and everybody's just looking out for each other. So everybody's been saying like, you really need this shift. Oh, you have to pay that bill this week, so you take my shift this week, and just looking out for each other. It's beautiful the way that the staff has really worked together to kind of make it work as best as possible for everyone. And people who depend on public transportation, some of the SEPTA lines have been cut, so employees are giving each other rides to and from work. I mean, I just feel it's very moving to see kind of how my staff has responded. They also totally on their own, like, converted. We have a little free library in front of the restaurant, and my staff converted the little free library into a little free pantry, and they've been stocking the pantry with dry goods for folks, and like toilet paper and things like that. And like, it's just awesome. So it's very motivating to find ways to keep such wonderful people working. And so it's a hustle. It feels like when we first opened, we celebrated our 5-year anniversary in March, and now it feels like the beginning, where it's like every day it's like, all right, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to make some money today? Like, and in some ways it's good. It feels like I'm firing on all cylinders. It's not like sit back and like, okay, like we're, established, people know us. It's like every day I'm thinking like, how can we put our name in front of people? How can we remind people that we're here? How can we help people in the community? How can we like just keep it all alive and get to the other side of it, So that's right. Every day. It's every day. I feel like, just like everyone else said, I'm in the middle of the night, like thinking like, oh, would this work? I haven't reached out to this person or started this idea yet. Oh, okay. Like all of our community connections and all, like, just reaching out to everyone we know with trying to be creative about how to keep it going.
It's amazing. It's great.
Yeah, I've been called on the carpet by my staff for those 3 a.m. emails. You pop up in bed and go, oh, I got to get this out, and you send it out, and then they say the next morning, it was 3 a.m. when you said that, my phone went off. What are you doing?
Yeah.
How about you, John? I know you said you're working from home. I guess the whole staff is working from home. How have you adjusted to that? How's the staff adjusted to that?
I mean, look, for us, it's just what we really had was the closeout of what we had already had built going in. So, our staff is just, people say like you're a family, kind of like what Michelle was saying about her. Our crew is so tight with each other, and they've been amazing. I mean, seeing how some of our deals are getting closed in like alleyways. I mean, people are buying $500,000 houses. It looks like a drug deal. So I mean, our staff in general, and then the vendors that we deal with have been unbelievable as far as, I think we've had, so when this was going in, we're usually at that time of the year, we're sitting around 40 to 50 pending transactions. And by April, we want to be around 100. Like by April, May, we want to be around 100, 125 pending transactions. That's kind of our goal. And we were sitting at 52, 53 when this all went down. And you have that like usually like a 5 to 10% drop rate of financing falls. It's just, it's the norm, right? Things just happen, and I think we're probably about a 96% close on those, so almost everything we had in the pipeline has gone through and closed and successfully done so in completely, just weird, unprecedented time. So, every day we're getting a new, hey, this just changed, that just changed. And our staff's just been fantastic about how they've responded to that and made sure everything's gone smoothly. We have a really good back office. So for us, it's just kind of moving forward, like the new things. That's where our focus is now.
Right. You had mentioned some new things and some adjustments to how you plan to do business going forward. Do you want to talk to that a little bit and kind of what your ideas are and maybe what some other realtors out there might be able to utilize going forward?
Absolutely. So, it's funny, right around 2.5 years ago, we really started to invest in the video world, right? So our marketing has become almost 90% video related and community related and things of that nature. And when we did that, the plan, when I spoke to the company that we ended up hiring for that, they said, well, hey, how many transactions do you guys want to do from this? And I said, none. We don't want one. Our goal is to build this so that when everything bottoms out, we become the source, and people can see that we're going to market your house land, air, sea. We're going to do video, we're going to do professional photos, we're going to do all these things that maybe everybody else isn't willing to do, as the herd thins. So we've started building for that. I never would have thought that this is how we'd be implementing it, but we're going to be triple down on our video marketing. Our goal is going to be to start making sure, essentially any property we can have some form of video to it as well, because that's such a huge, it resonates so well with people online right now and the way they're going to be built. One of the other things is funny that we had a fantastic 3D tour. I think Bill, you and I talked about it yesterday, and this thing is the most detailed thing. It's just unbelievable technology. We use it for our apartment buildings, our commercial buildings, things that are more difficult to get into for a showing. But we stopped using it about 2 years ago for just our standard residential real estate. What we found was it was limiting showings. So I could look at this and say, oh, I did the walkthrough, and the walkthrough is so realistic that we had one person complain that she said, take my walkthrough down, you can see my dirty underwear in the basket. So that's how realistic this thing is. And, we pulled it back because we were seeing properties that would typically get maybe 50 showings. We're getting 10. And when we would talk to agents, they said, oh, my client looked at that. They looked at this virtual tour and decided they didn't even want to see it. And real estate's a feel, touch, emotional purchase. People need to see it and see their family or see what their life's going to look like there. So we pulled it back and said, hey, we want people to come to the house and kind of feel it hands-on. Well, now we're looking at a world where we want to limit showings, which I never thought I would say. Our goal moving forward is probably going to be, at least in the early stages of this, we've already started. Everything we're doing with that is now going to have that virtual tour option, on any priced home that we list. And the main reason is because we don't want traffic at the home. We want limited traffic, and we want sincere traffic. If there's going to be traffic in the future, we want it to be somebody who's already looked at everything else and said, hey, I'm ready to buy it, and I want to come get my eyes on it and feel it now. And that's a really, really unique approach and kind of grasping that and coming to terms with that reality. But I think that's going to be the new norm is, be able to give them every feeling you can possibly give a consumer online, the virtual, the video, the everything about it, and then let them come if they love all of that, which is totally against what we've been doing for years, but is going to be the new norm, which I never thought the word normal wouldn't feel normal.
Right. Michelle, I know when we talked, you had mentioned that, you expect this to be a long-term situation for restaurants. What are you doing to brace for that? And what can other restaurant owners do to kind of brace for the impact of this?
I really do think figuring out a way to make delivery and online options work is really important. I think that in the delivery apps that people use right now, it's tricky because those are usually supplementary to sales, and those companies do take a big cut from restaurants. So I think that we might see more. I mean, we're doing just in-house delivery because we're trying to keep our employees working. So that's one of the things that we're not using one of those apps. And I wonder if people are going to start to go back to having in-house delivery people, because it's hard. It's a lot harder to give up a percentage of sales when there's just not as many sales. But I think that the other thing, in terms of adjusting, like, I don't know what's going to happen with the supply chain. Right now, we're seeing really weird things like right now, chicken just went super high. Meat is they're kind of telling us to brace for meat prices to go really high and for the supply not to really be there. So the same thing happened with eggs, and then like eggs went sky high and then went back down again. It's a little crazy. So I think it's a little unpredictable, and I don't know if prices are going to have to go up in restaurants to kind of, keep, like, first of all, make up for the fact that there's just not the sales, and second of all, that the supply is definitely wonky, and that food cost is going up. I'm not sure. I don't feel like we're there yet, at least in our business, but I don't know. From the very beginning, I kept saying I'm sure everyone feels this way. I kept saying, like, if I could just know the end date, that would be really helpful. Like if we knew that we were just planning for until August or whatever, then it's a whole different picture, But the fact that we're sort of planning for this long-term thing of uncertainty just really makes it so difficult. And so, I wouldn't be surprised, like if we can continue to see sort of, I'm thinking of it as like rolling shutdowns or something like that. Like if we have, 2 weeks of closure in November and I don't know, like, I don't even want to say it. But if we see more of that going down the line, then I think that, we'll be braced for it more. I think that it took us so off guard, and it was so frightening in the initial weeks of this. And I feel like now at least we'll have some preparation and some sort of understanding of what to expect, like what kind of numbers we can do, what kind of sales we can do under these circumstances. And, I think that raising prices by January, I don't know where we'll be with that. But for right now, I think that just asking people to still do their takeout and take care of their mothers on Mother's Day, that helps. And I don't know, tip your delivery person. I shouldn't even say that, because people have been tipping our folks so generous. Like the generosity from people, I think people really do have an understanding. They see who is hard hit, and that's why people are, wanting to send nurses meals and wanting to send things to the folks at Trader Joe's. And, I think that people are aware of how hard restaurants are hit and how hard certain industries, certainly gym, the Y and other places like that, fitness places. I feel like that's so challenging because we just don't know. We just don't know when we can safely come back to all that, sharing things.
Sure. Right.
Crazy. But for us, I don't know. I don't want to predict anything negative. I feel like I want to, I'm trying to be really optimistic.
Yeah.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, you had mentioned some stuff about the community. The community has absolutely come together through a lot of this. Is there any silver lining to what's happening here and what we can take out of it going forward?
I can only speak from personal experience and echo what everyone else has said already, is that I think the silver lining is people in our communities have really come together to support each other. I know I try to go on a walk every day. I can't run anymore, Kevin, sorry, back gave out. But,
right.
Like today, it was garbage day where I live. And the sanitation workers were picking up trash, and I made it a personal thing to stop and say thank you to them. Those people that you just don't really appreciate all the time are helping us stay safe. And I think if we all can continue to keep that in the forefront, that there are people who are less fortunate than us right now. There are people, I know I was blown away. The Springfield Police Department came up to our food drive. And when one cruiser pulled in, I thought, oh Lord, I'm in trouble. I didn't get the right permit. I didn't do something right. And then the police chief's cruiser pulled in, and they were big Ford Explorers. And I walked up to him, and he opened the back, and it was filled floor to ceiling with canned goods and foods And I said, oh, Chief, thanks. And he said, during this whole time, people have been feeding us and bringing things to us. And we as a department figured it was time for us to give back. And I said, you give back every day. He said, no, like really giving back. And I think if people keep that attitude and keep thinking about those and those that are less fortunate than us, that's what's going to move us forward. I know that everyone here feels that way, but I think even as we come out of whatever this cycle is going to be, we need to keep that there. And if we don't, then we didn't learn anything.
And Kev, you touched on this a little bit in the last question here. You said you've been through it in 2008, something similar. What kind of mindset did people take going through this, that there is light on the other side?
Well, I mean, I think, I think it's only what can you do, right? At the end of the day, is to control the controllables, the things that you can control. And so focusing on that makes it so much easier than to go off. I mean, I could just see you, Michelle, you were thinking about all these different variables, things that could happen. But at the end of the day, you got to focus on today and what you could do today, right? And I know that when I start thinking too far ahead of time, and I'm a planner, so I like to think ahead. That's what I've really made my stock and trade, is like plan ahead, do the plan. But right now it's about making decisions only when I need to. I tend to make decisions fast, and so I need to slow down the decision process and think things through. And be prepared to reevaluate decisions, because I think I was telling you yesterday or 2 days ago, Bill, that I'd made some wrong decisions, and they really weren't wrong decisions, because given the information at the time, they were the best decision I could make. But looking back, maybe I would have done them differently. But there's really no way to do anything about that. It's really just controlling the controllables. And I think what you said, Mike, is to have empathy for others, because at the end of the day, this is tough. There's no question about it. It's tough to have your business destroyed, but you're absolutely right. There are people that have it a lot worse. And I'm pretty lucky in a lot of respects. And if I spend a lot of time being down and out about it, then I'm just sort of creating my own negative world. So it's about what you say when you talk to yourself. And when I have that first victim mentality thought, like, why did this happen to me? I quickly change it. I recognize it as, well, that isn't a very constructive thought. And I change it to, what can I do about it? And ultimately, that feels an awful lot better than being a victim. So I just don't allow myself to spend a lot of time going, oh, why did this happen? Why did I make that decision, or anything like that? Because at the end of the day, what can I do about it gets me into a new place. And that's what I've been really trying to do, is I want to cultivate empathy. I want to cultivate understanding. And I want to cultivate happiness even in this crazy time, because like Mike, you found silver linings. You're having dinner with your family in a whole new way. And so I think focusing on that is the healthiest way out of this. Focus on the things that are good, that you can work on: your health, your mentality, your fitness, the way you treat others. There's a lot we can do. So focusing on those things.
Amen.
Awesome. Thanks, Kev.
Thank you.
So I know we ran over a little bit here. I just want to thank all the panelists for coming out. You guys given a lot of great information. Thank you for everyone who attended. As we've said, there's small businesses out there that are still in operation. Could use your support now more than ever. So let's support our local businesses as much as we can. So again, thank you all, and good luck getting through this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Good luck.